Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well tutorial. This is going to be a very ad hoc tutorial. Basically, every Friday or so, I would like to give myself like an hour to test new technology out. Now, I have mentioned that I want to change my blog. I want to give it a bit of TLC. I want to give it a bit of lick of paint. The theme that I'm running here is very custom. It's all in WordPress. And you could say, well, why don't you just create a new theme? Well, I could. There is some plugins that I've built for this as well. But what I would like to do is play around with some new technology. And the thing I want to play with is Jekyll. And Jekyll is a way of creating static pages, right? A static website. Now, the first thing I thought of when I heard that was, oh, there's no CMS. You know, how am I going to manage my stuff? There's no database. How am I going to store all the bits and pieces? But Jekyll actually has a very good way of building your site, pulling in variables, and just basically building it from about a load of static pages, if you will, pages and posts. And so I want to play with that. I want to try that out. It's a new toy. I did say in one of my previous videos, my chats, that what I will probably end up doing is wanting to change the whole thing, not just the way it looks of the blog. And that's exactly where we are. I want to change the whole thing. So anyway, I want to play around with Jekyll. I have played around with it a little bit, just locally, just to see if I can get things set up and running. So I'm going to walk through that process with this video, and then maybe we'll have a series where we move this monolithic blog post or page or site. I mean, this is getting a little unwieldy, because so these are all of my videos up here that I've done. I mean, I have said that these get pulled in through Python, which is fine, but you know, it's a bit troublesome to manage, and also it's a bit troublesome to manage the SEO as well, because there's various ways of getting to the pages. I think if I was in control a little bit more and took a little less control from WordPress and put it on my shoulders, then I might be able to manage it a little bit better. But anyway, I digress. Let's start this up. Let's create a new repository. So what I'm going to do here is create a new GitHub repo. So my username, for GitHub is pfwd, and to create a GitHub page, you do actually, let me just double check how you do that. Scroll down here. It is the username and then github.io. Cool. Okay, so if you don't know, GitHub Pages is a way of creating basically a static website that is hosted by GitHub, and it works very well with Jekyll. So pfwd.github.io, and of course you've changed that to FWD, as you do always. Now, I'm not going to bother with any of this description malarkey. So let's just create the repo, github.io. That's good. Okay, dokie. Right, let's bring up the old terminal. And what I need to do is I'm going to copy you, and I'm just going to do git clone. Now, I do apologize with the sound quality on this. If it sounds like my laptop is going to lift and take off, it's probably because it's trying to do all sorts of bits and pieces with other videos, uploading them and so forth. I really haven't taken the right time to do this, but hey ho, I am quite busy today, so I thought I would do this. .git. Okay, the reason why I do this, right, is the reason why I specify a destination is because if I don't put in .git, then it doesn't give me the .git extension. And obviously, as a I work with some SVN repos. I work with other GitHub repos, so it's nice to know what their extensions are. So I know as soon as I get into the directory, I know that this is a GitHub directory. Just a bit of a tip there. So let's create that. So it's cloning. Yeah, I appear to have cloned a empty repo. Let's have a look at that. that empty repo. There we go. It's empty. So let's go and try out this GitHub page. Let's do vi index.html. So this is just a test page. Let me bring that back into view a little bit. Let's do a h1. Yep, breaking all of the the doc type standards. Let's do this is a test and close that. Right, and quit the page. Good. Okay. So now I do a git add of index and then a git commit -m test file, and good. Let's do a git push that to the GitHub repo. Excellent. Okay, so let me just check that. Let's hit that. Yep, we've got our index page in here. Apparently that happened 11 seconds ago. I'm dubious about that. Let's just copy that, because we should technically, I don't know if this is going to work. Oh yes, this is a test. So that is a demonstration, I suppose, of how you can create very static pages, static websites, I suppose, through GitHub. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we'll use this as the basis for our Jekyll Jekyll site. Okay, good. Let's cross that off. Right, so let's install Jekyll. Scroll down. So it's asking for, well, it uses Ruby, and it's asking for the version of Ruby. It needs to be 2.1 or higher. Let's double check that, clear that down. 2.4, that's good. And let's install Bundler. I think I've already got this. Do I have it? Is it going to install it? Well, it's successfully installed. That's cool. Okay, good. Now let's scroll down to this bit. So I'll leave the links in the description where I'm at below. So create your local repository for your Jekyll site. So we've done all this bit, the git init and all that stuff. That was me cloning the site. And you can clone the GitHub pages branch if you wish to. I'm just going to keep it on master for now. And then install the Jekyll using Bundler. So we need to create a gem file with this inside. And the gem file is what Ruby will use to install the dependencies. So vi gem file. And so let's just paste that in. So that looks good to me. Right, and click the page. Yep, we've got our gem file, and we've also got. I'm going to remove the index. I don't need that. Let's remove that. Okay, so we're now on number 3. Name the gem file, root directory. Done that. If you've already opened your favorite text editor, such as Atom, where we're using VI because we're pros, that's fine. Install Jekyll and other dependencies from the GitHub page. So now we do a bundle install. Okay, let's run that. Now, like I said, I've already installed Jekyll before, and I've removed it. So yeah, these things are already done. These dependencies are already in. That's fine. That's good. So we've got that. Let's just double check that we do. How many times have I done this before and I've noticed that the path is wrong? Version. Yep, 3.4.3. That's good. Scroll down. So this is optional stuff. Nothing out of the ordinary here, although we can do a execute to execute 3.3. Okay. Again, this is just creating your GitHub bits and pieces, building your Jekyll site. This is the fun part. Okay, so navigate to the root directory, which we are already in, and then run your site locally. So this is pretty cool. This Jekyllrb. This is actually going to create like a little mini client-sided web server, I guess. So let's copy that. I'm going to clear that down just to give a little bit of room. Right, so apparently something is running on this address, and if this is the case, then that's going to be great. However, I haven't got any files, website files, so no. Yep. So what I need to do is start adding some Jekyll goodness to this. So what we can do is, I'm just going to open that up. Nope, that was the wrong link. Sorry, I apologize. There is a link somewhere to Jekyll. Jekyll. There we go. The Jekyll documentation. Okay, so let's just go home. This is the. I really kind of should have shown you this before. This is the Jekyll website, and this is a good way of explaining. It's got some good documentation on what you need. So what we're going to do is just create our very first page. Let's scroll down to static files, maybe creating pages. Here we go, creating pages. So we can create just normal index.html files. So HTML files as well as Markdown, which is pretty awesome. One thing I will just show you is if we scroll up. So I do recommend you go through all of this. I'm doing this very slapdash, but I recommend you go through each one of these bits. But let's just take a look at the directory structure, because this is quite important. So we configure everything using YAML files, which is pretty cool. And then anything that is kind of like part of the application before it gets parsed and before it gets built, you put like an underscore. So underscore config, underscore data, drafts includes libraries and so forth. And then what it does is it then goes through each one of those, builds that up, and then provides you with a static site, which is pretty awesome. So do check all of this out, because this is very, very handy stuff. Most of which I haven't even looked at yet, but we'll get to those as we get to it. So one thing I want to do is create a file, create a page. Create a page. There was a link, creating pages. So we're going to create our first home page. I'm going to just do it in HTML. So let's close that down and then do an ls. And I'm going to do a vi of index.html. And here I'm just going to have just h1. Actually, no, I'm going to do p tag like so. And I'm just going to do this is a test home page like so. Now, one thing that you do need to do is at the top of the page, you need to do what's called front matter, okay, which is this here, front matter. It's basically where Jekyll starts to see that this is a part of, this is the page. You can define sort of like, I don't want to use the word global, but you can define these variables that you can use that define how Jekyll manages and parses the site. So here we've got layout and title, for instance, and you can use these, and there are some other custom variables that you can put in and all sorts of stuff. The variable notation is like this. So this reminds me a lot of Twig, which is another win, because I'm a heavy Symfony user. I use Symfony quite a lot with my my clients. So this is very handy. It's not like I'm having to learn some crazy ass other. So this is really handy because I'm not having to learn any other crazy templating system. It's not Twig. I will just say that it's not Twig. I think it's called Fluid. Oh no, it's not Fluid. Sorry, Liquid. It's a Liquid templating engine, which on the face of it looks very Twig-like. Okay, let's scroll up and put in this. So let's copy that. My laptop sounds like it's going to lift off in a minute. What I'm going to do, because we haven't actually defined any of these things yet, I'm going to remove them. But you do need to ensure that you have these 3 dashes, or the 2 sets of 3 dashes like that, because this is basically the way that Jekyll knows that this is a page, right? Or this is part of the site that needs to be parsed. So let's close that down. Oops, right, and quit. All good stuff. Okay, so what I want to do is, because if we go back to this this blog, we've got all sorts of stuff, right? So you've got the header, you've got the navigation, you've got the sidebars, you've got the footers, you've got all of these other bits and pieces, these other crazy stuff. So, and the adverts and all of that stuff. Obviously, creating a static site, you could think, well, hang on a minute, you're gonna have to duplicate all of this stuff. But what you can do is create these templates, these partials, these includes, these fragments of smaller portions of code, and then share them. So let's go back to here. And so what I want to do is create some includes. So I kind of skipped over templates. We'll get onto that maybe later on. So we have these includes. The include tag allows you to include content from another file stored in the includes folder. Now the includes folder we don't have out the box, so I think I'm going to have to do a mkdir _include, and is it plural? S, yeah, S. There we go. Okay, so we can cd into includes. And what I'm going to do is just follow this sort of example where you've got the include footer. So I'm going to do I'm going to do header.html, and in here I'm going to do I'm just going to do a simple h1 and go, this is the header, like so. Boom. Close that down, right, and quit. And then I'm going to do another one, but surprise, surprise, I'm going to call this footer, like so. And again, I'm going to do, I didn't copy that file, did I? So I'm going to do h2, this is a footer, like that. It's not the most technical stuff in the world. And then, how do we add those to the page? So let's cd back, go into index. So index just has, let me bring this up a little bit so you can see it, otherwise it's coming off the page. vi index. Okay, so the way we include these things, if I go back to here, is like this. So it's curly braces and then a percentage, which is very Twig-like. If you're a Symfony developer and you've used Twig, this shouldn't be very difficult to pick up. So pick that up and copy that here. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. Excuse me. Okay, so we want to obviously put the footer underneath, so header, and scroll down like here. Put that in. Okay, so now we're including the header above the paragraph and then the footer below the paragraph. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? So let's write and quit. And what I need to do is serve this thing up. Let's serve it up on a plate. I'm going to bring this up a little bit more. Okay, so we've just added that. So hopefully, if I can go here, refresh the page, you can see that we have the header and the footer. So that's a way of sort of including files, so headers, footers, sidebars. So you can do all that, right? That is fantastic. Because that was one of the things that I thought, oh no, no. Using static sites is just going to be painful because I'm going to have to duplicate all sorts of stuff. But no, you don't have to do it with Jekyll. And you saw, well, this is only a small page, but it's very fast. There is no database calls. There's no PHP calls. There's nothing that is getting in the way of actually just displaying the page. It is that simple. So now, whether or not I use Jekyll to actually build this or rebuild this site, and I'm going to have to come up with some ideas for designs and so forth. Whether or not I do this, I don't know. I just wanted to play around with this, and I thought, well, this is new technology. Might as well make a video of it, right? Because, just to show you how to install it, how to use it, and so forth. So I might do some more. This might turn into a series, I don't know. I'm not going to put this up to my GitHub profile yet, but if I was to do that, then I'll create a series out of it, and I'll let you guys know. But anyway, and another point I would like to make, I'm recording this way back in May, and it probably will not be published until in the later months, purely because I've got other videos that I want to publish, other tutorials that I want to do, other web chats that I want to do. So this is kind of like a B-roll, if that makes sense. Anyway, so enough of my random banter. I'll speak to you again soon. I mean, do subscribe to pick up the web chats as well as the tutorials that I do each week. And subscribe and like the video if you found it helpful. Do share it around. Thanks again for watching. Happy coding. I'll see you again soon. Cheers. Bye. Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well tutorial. Today we're going to further our development in Jekyll, and we're going to look at how we can lay out pages. Now, in the previous tutorial I talked about how to create menus or data files, and a menu within a data file, and how to iterate through this JSON structure. So do check that out if you haven't done so already. Basically this course is me trying to understand how I can use Jekyll as a substitute for my WordPress blog. So this is my blog here, and I basically want to see if there's a way I can transfer this dynamically generated blog, which is in WordPress, into a statically generated HTML set of pages using Jekyll. Now, one thing that has always concerned me with static site generators is how to separate the content from the actual layout. Sometimes they can be quite entwined, and in fact this is how this WordPress blog has developed and evolved over time. I've got layout features within the content, and the content is also within the layout features. So it gets a bit muddy when creating blog posts and creating new tutorials and so forth. There are certain elements within these posts and these pages that are layout specific stuff rather than content specific stuff, and vice versa. I'm talking about things like using the using shortcodes within posts and stuff like that. It does get a little bit messy. So today I want to look at how we can lay out our content and how we can present that. I'm not necessarily worried too much at the moment about how we style it. It's more about how we structure it. So I want to have a separation between layout and content. So when I'm on a train or a plane or a car or in a cafe, or just here in the office, when I'm writing my blog posts, when I'm creating my content, I don't want to be worried too much about how that content is laid out, because I want that to be dealt with within a theme or within a layout. So let's try and do that now. So with Jekyll, what you can do is create a layouts folder here. And in those layouts, you define a series of layouts or files that define a layout, and then you can target those layouts when you're creating your content. So what I need to do is create a layouts folder. So this is just, this IDE here is just Sublime Text. So I just type in _layouts, like so. And in here, you would put your layouts. Now, what I would like to achieve is separating the content from the actual display. So when I say display, I mean here, like the include header and include footer. So like I said, with the WordPress blog, I had lots of like shortcodes within the posts and stuff, and I want to get away from that. I want to try and clean it up as much as I can. So I just want this page to be specifically content. I don't want to worry about how that content is displayed. So what we need to do is create a layout in here. We're going to call it, I don't know, we're going to call it probably just page for now. Let's save that as page.html. And what I would like to do is have this include header in here, as well as the include footer. So obviously I need a way of injecting the content into this layout, and you do that by putting in this content variable here. So if I copy that, put it in between these things and save that. So now I've separated the layout from the content, because there's no content within this layout, you know, until it gets injected. But obviously I need to tell this page that it needs to adhere to a certain layout, and you do this within this front matter here. You do layout colon, and then you tell it what layout to use. So in this case it's just page, like so. Save that. Okay, let's take a look and see what's happened. Now, if this has worked, then nothing should have changed. Let's refresh the page. Yeah, and that's because it's just using the same includes, the header and the footer. But let's go and change a couple of bits. Let's see if we can get, so that's including the header. Let's see if we can just put something in here, just to ensure that we have got this layout. So let's do a strong, this is a layout test. Close that strong, save that. I'll refresh this page, and you can see that we have this strong tag. So this here is the header, this is the footer, and this is being injected into the, or this content is being injected into that layout. Now I can use this, it's quite a powerful tool. I can use this for other pages as well. Let's try that. So let's, let's go back to here. I'm going to remove that for now. Now in the menu.json we had the about, so that goes to /about, and if I was to do new file, save that as about.html, and I'm going to do, well, let's just copy that over. This is a test home page. Let's say that this is a test about page, and save that. Now, if I go to the blog, or this thing here, and go into about and do that, we can now see that we have the about page. Obviously, we haven't defined the layout that this about page uses. So let's do that now. Let's go back to here, copy over this front matter, and put that in there, save that, refresh this page, and now can you see we're adhering or injecting this content into this layout, which is exactly what I want to do. And in fact, what I would like to do, go even further than that, is instead of use HTML to create this content, is use Markdown. Markdown I find is far easier to read because you're not worrying too much about these tags. And you could do that. You can, if I was to rename this to, instead of HTML, to MD, and change that to be, let's do a title, so let's do about page, save that, change that to be Markdown as well, so this is the index page, MD, save that, and also change this to be home page, save, refresh, whoops, wrong page, sorry, refresh this, and we can see that this is the about page, and if we go back to here, this is the home page. Whoops, that's not, sorry, sorry, I need to rename this, forgive me, MD, there we go, refresh that, yeah, now this is a Markdown page. So this is Markdown content, which is, in my opinion, very easy to develop and create and write. You're literally just writing it. It's very minimal. This is kind of the point I want to make when transferring this blog, the blog that I've originally got, to Jekyll, is I want to be as minimal as possible. I don't want to worry about how the page is laid out when I'm creating the content. I need to be in a position where I'm comfortable that it will be laid out correctly because it's adhering a set of layouts, a set of templates that I have created. And as I said, with the blog, it got very unwieldy because there's certain pages, it's especially with the pages, where I've got certain elements in here that that's not even displayed very well. I think it's there we go. So I've got certain things in here that are hard-coded within the post, right? And what I would like to do is create a set of layouts that I can do, and maybe put this in, if these things, put these in like a data file, and then sort of iterate through them, then all I have to do is worry about updating the data file. I don't have to actually go in and manipulate the content and actually put in all sorts of bits and pieces. Same with the skill sets. Skill sets is a very dynamic page. It's just this that moves. Again, that is in a post. It iterates through JavaScript and so forth, but it shouldn't necessarily be in a post. It should actually be in a page, and its content should be defined by a data file. So this is kind of my new way of thinking. Okay, so both pages now are in Markdown, and I think this is the way I'm going to go forward, is create the content just in Markdown, because that forces me to not use any HTML. That forces me to remove the display of the content from the content itself. Obviously I can use the Markdown tags, but it's limited to Markdown tags, right? And to be honest, this blog is a technical blog, so it's just text and code. So I don't need to worry about the actual styles so much, as long as I've got a very well-defined set of layouts. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If you found this useful, if you found this helpful, then do give it a thumbs up, do like it, share it around if you think others might find it useful too. Do subscribe to pick up the next web chats and tutorials that I do each week. Thanks again for watching. Happy coding. I shall see you again shortly. Cheers. Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well tutorial. Today we're going to focus a little bit more on Jekyll. Jekyll, as I mentioned in the previous tutorial, that I'll put a link in the description below, is a static website generator. It's a way of creating static websites, and I'm just thinking about moving from WordPress to Jekyll. This is the blog that I've got here, and today we're going to look at creating a navigation system. This navigation up here, this is the old blog that I've got, in data files. Now in the WordPress world, we would obviously create these things in a widget, so that would all be stored in the database. Of course, with Jekyll, it's a static site, so there's no database connection at all. So we need to create these things in a data file that then gets parsed in and then used as variables in the template, in the Liquid template engine. And we do this like so. So we create a underscore data folder, which is described here, underscore data folder. Now that can take a YAML file, a JSON file, or a CSV, and we can then access those things using site.data.members. So that's going to be an array of these members here, or here if it's in YAML, and then we can loop through them. So I'm going to do a demonstration of that using this navigation up here. Some of this I'm going to change as I go through as well. Now for this, I'm going to use Sublime Text instead of the console that I used before. So what we need to do, is to create a folder called underscore data, like so. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually create a JSON file in here. So new file. I'm going to call this pages. In fact, no, sorry, I'm going to call this menu.json, and I'm going to have pages, and that's going to be an array of some objects like so, and the first one is going to be name, and that's going to just be home, and I'm going to give it a URL of just slash and a title of, well, what's the title in the existing site? So if we hover over that, it should UK-based freelance and mobile developer. I'm just going to say on this that it's just a I'm just a UK-based freelance web developer. Okay, let's create another node in here, or another object. And this one is going to be, I'm not going to bother with Peter Fisher. I'm just going to have, publications. publications, and that's going to go to publications like so, and this will be books, YouTube, and books. Yeah, that's books and YouTube. Books and YouTube. And the next one I'm going to have well, actually, I'm going to change that to be about, and that's going to be like that, and that's going to be about Peter Fisher, and then this one is publication, and then the next one I guess is going to be blog, because after all it is a blog. What do I have up here? I want to kind of keep it almost similar, I guess. Latest blog posts. Okay, that's simple enough. Latest blog posts from Peter Fisher. Oops, that needs to be like that. Okay, that'll do for now. Actually, no, I'll add some more. So I'm going to add another one, which is just contact, like that. That is contact me, and I'm missing some single quotes here. That's fine. And then the next one is just hire me. That's the last one that we're going to do. So hire me, and then this is going to be hire Peter, or trying to remove the third person. Hire me to build your website. Okay, so and I think so. Home, about, publications, blog, contact. That we're also going to have tuition as well, because that's quite a large thing as well that I need to remember to include. Tutoring. And what did I have for that? Let's hover over that and see. That is programming tuition. Web development. Tutoring. All right. Okay, that'll do for now. So we've got this JSON object here, or array called pages, and in there we have an array of objects. Like so. The first one's home, then about. I'm just double checking all of this is fine. Looks good to me. All the single quotes are in the right place. Okay, good. Let's try this now. So save that, and then in index, what I'm going to do is use the for each syntax. So for, and then it's page in. Now we need to do site.data, because site.data references the data folder here. Then we need to do menu, because that's referencing the menu.json file, and then we can iterate through those parts of the variables within here. And in the first one is pages, so let's do pages like so. And then we close that off with the percentage, and then we can do end for, so that's ending the loop. Excellent. Okay, so now in here we can do, well, actually before this we're going to do a UL, and then we're going to close that off. UL like this. Oops. And then we can do an LI and close that off too. Now what we can do is access each of these, the portions of each of the page object using this syntax, so these curly braces like so, and we do page because we're referencing, so we're referencing this page object, and then we can do dot and then name, And if we save that, we should hopefully, if I ran serve again, and then if I accessed here, refresh the page, now we can see that we have a list of all of the things that we just supplied. So these are all the names that we've just created. So all of that references all of this, right? So these are all the names. Okay, so if I was to change home to be welcome and save that, and then if I was to run this again, so we're going to do a serve, and then went back into here and refresh the page, we can see that that's been changed to welcome. Now, obviously this is an object, and that object has other things. So what I can do is access the other parts of this. So URL and title, for instance, we can do this in here. If I wanted to create this as an A tag, I would do a href, and then I would access page.url, like so. And also I can do title is equal to page.title, like that as well. Okay, so obviously we need to clean that, so we can just close that like so. So now we should have a list of links. Let's just run this through again and see what we got. So refresh the page. Now these are all links. Now obviously none of these links work at the moment, but I hope this is a good demonstration of showing you how to create data sets of data that we can define and then loop through and loop over to pull out the information, the variables and the values and so forth. Now at the moment this is all in the index file. I don't want this in the index file, I want this in the header file. So what we can do is move some bits and pieces around. So let's go into here where we've got the UL. So this is in the index file. Let's just cut that, save that, and put this in the header. So this is a header, so I'm just going to put that in here. I'm also going to do some other bits and pieces here, so I'm just going to have this as a nav node, and save that. Let's just format that a little bit nicer. And just to prove that this works, I'm going to change the UL to an OL to give it an ordered list. And if we refreshed, then we can see that we have this in the header. So that's automatically being changed. So now we have this list of links. Okay, so that's a very quick example of how we can use data files to generate data on the fly. This is going to be very useful because, like I said, on the blog, we've got these videos here that are based off of a Python script. Now, the Python script actually generates JSON files, so hopefully this is a way I can create these data files on the fly whenever I publish a video, and then all I have to do is build the site each time that happens, which is fantastic. So I basically rebuild the site on a nightly basis, perhaps. So anyway, that's a quick demonstration of the data files. I hope that was useful. If you've enjoyed this video, if you've liked it, if you found it helpful, then give it a thumbs up. Do share it around to others that might find it useful too. Do subscribe to pick up the latest web chats as well as the tutorials that I do each week. Thanks again for watching. Happy coding. See you again next time. Cheers. Hello and welcome to another How to Code Well tutorial. Today we're going to focus more on Jekyll and how we can structure the layouts and structure the templates that we created in the previous tutorial. If you haven't seen that yet, I'll put a link in the description below. But we were talking then about the content and how we can inject the content into the layout pages. Now, one thing I didn't mention last time was that we don't necessarily need to keep the same default directory structure that we have in Jekyll. For example, at the moment, everything in the includes folder is just literally in here, so the footer and the header, right? But if you think about a blog, in fact, if you take a look at the blog that I'm trying to convert into Jekyll, it has all sorts of templates, it has all sorts of layouts and so forth that you want to kind of put in their own little folders, if you will. I guess in the WordPress sense, because this was built in WordPress, you would think of widgets, and you might have a plugin or a widget, and that would have its own folder structure perhaps. So like, for example, we've got a primary navigation going along the top. We've got a secondary here, which is like the sidebar navigation, if you will. And then we've got some more navigation down here. We've got tagging, and then we've got all of this navigation to deal with. So there's quite a lot of stuff to actually segment from this website and convert over to Jekyll. And really, ideally, it needs to be portioned in its own sort of folder. So you would have like a folder just for the header. You would have a folder just for the sidebar. So there's a lot of stuff going on this website, perhaps a little bit too much. Also, a lot of these things share different assets, different schemes, different styles and so forth. So for example, the color schemes here, that's shared all the way through. And also it knows what page you're on, so home. So there is some sort of intelligence. So if I went to the blog, for example, it will be highlighted with blog. Plus, each page comes with a strapline as well as a breadcrumb. But it's good to think about how a web page is built up in general, regardless of what tool you use, whether it's WordPress, whether it's Jekyll or whatever. It's good to build the templating in such a way that you can reuse things and you can inject variables into those templates and so forth. Now, in the previous tutorial, what we did, if I go back here, is we just bunged everything in this includes, and we had the footer and the header. Now, if you think about a header and a footer, they've actually got quite a lot to them. So, for instance, with the header, you've got the navigation, you've got the breadcrumbs, and you've got the strapline, right? And the footer, you've got even more. You've got more navigation, you've got social links, you've got YouTube links, you've got Facebook links, and so forth. So there's a lot of stuff, right? And then again, you've got the sidebar and so forth. So really the ideal situation is to lay out the templates, or lay out the layouts, I should say, in Jekyll's terms, in such a way that makes sense. So just throwing everything in the header file, throwing everything in the footer file isn't great when you want to reuse things. So what I'm going to do is actually create some of my own directories within these things, and it's perfectly acceptable to do so. So for example, in the includes, I'm going to create a new folder in here, and I'm just going to do header, right? And another folder in here, called footer. So now I'm starting to give some structure to what's in these include folders. And then in here, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create a file in here, and I'm going to call this base. Okay, base.html. If you've used Twig or Symfony before, then having base template files should be something familiar. Okay, let's save that. And also I'm going to have base in here as well. Base.html. And then what I'm going to do is in header, I'm just going to copy this and put it in head here, put it in the base, save that. Likewise with the footer, I'm just going to copy that, put it in here, like so, save that, good. Okay, I'm going to delete these, and in the header, where we've got, this is a header, and then we've got the navigation structure, actually that navigation structure should be a menu, and perhaps I might want to use that menu later on. So for example, if I go back to this blog here, we've got the menu at the top, but we've also got, right at the bottom, we've got lots of menus here, and I might want to perhaps have a replication of that menu somewhere on the page. Maybe it's on a sidebar or somewhere. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder, a new folder in here called menus, and I'm going to have a new file in here, and I'm going to save that as primary.html. And so we've got a little bit of structure going on here: footer, header, and menus. And in the header, we're going to take the whole thing, save that, put that into the primary navigation, I mean, you could call that navigation, I suppose. Whatever. You know, it's just words at the end of the day. It's what defines those things, the elements that you use. So we've got, this is exactly the same as it was before. So it's just using site.data.menu.pages, which is up in here. Okay, so we have the base. Now this obviously needs to include the primary. So what I'm going to do is just copy, whoopsie, sorry, I'm just going to copy this portion here. So we've got header, base, and it's going to be menus / primary. So primary, sorry, .html, save that. And then in footer, yeah, I'm just going to leave that like that at the moment. Then what we need to do is actually tie these together, because at the moment with our layouts it just goes straight to header. Well, in fact what we need to do is go header / and then base.html and then footer / base.html, like so. Okay, so if that works, then we shouldn't actually see any difference, because all we've done is just change the structure of these files. So what I'm going to do is just refresh this page. Fingers crossed. Yeah, it looks good. We've got the header and we've got the footer. I'm just going to test that out. Let's go to the header here, and let's just put an exclamation mark in that. Save view. This is a header. Boom. Yeah, good. Okay, so that's kind of a way that we can isolate certain pieces of the templates, or certain parts of the includes, I should say. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is on here, I mentioned that a lot of these have strap lines, right? So a lot of these things have, or some of them, I mean, that doesn't have one. This one, I think, has one. Yep. And I believe that one has something else. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a strapline variable. Now this obviously is a custom variable, and we're going to put that into the header block. So what we're going to do is, whoops, right. So where we've got the pages, so we've got about.md and index.md, we can actually define our own variables that we can inject into these include files or into the layout files. So in here, for example, I'm in the front matter here, we're going to put in strap line and then colon, and we're just going to do whoops, something like that, if I can spell my name right. Okay, and also on index we're going to do the same, so I'll just copy that through. So UK based web developer, like that, and I'll save that. Okay, so how do we actually get to these variables? So we've just created a variable called strapline. We've put it in the about page as well as the index page. Now anything within here can be accessed through the variable or the object called page, right? So this would be page.layout, this would be page.strapline. So if we scroll up to header, for instance, where we've including the menus primary, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new file in here called strapline.html, like so, and I'm just going to do p, then I'm going to do, whoops, sorry, page.strapline, and close that off. I'm also going to put in a horizontal rule, like so, and save that. Okay, that obviously didn't work. Let's have a look and see what's going on. So in the about page, this is where we're at. We've got strapline, and if we go into head here in base, we are going to the primary, which is here. Oh, I haven't actually included the file. So what we need to do in here, forgive me, is include strapline. So this is not in its own file, so we don't need to go into any other directory. It is literally, can I save that? Oh, no. Strapline, I thought that was in my my clipboard. Include strapline, so hopefully that should work now. Let's refresh. No. Include strapline.html. Include strapline.html. Let's see what's going on in here. So error exists, could not locate strapline. Have I spelt it correctly? Probably not. Let's do a rename. No, I have strapline. Okay, well, you know, that spelling is the same at least. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I get this. Forgive me. I'm getting confused. So the include here is, it needs to go straight into header. Moron. Like that. Okay, so because for instance, what we've literally done is put strapline in here. So when with base we need to go, because it goes back to includes header strapline. Save that, refresh the page, and there we go. We've got the strapline. Thank goodness. So okay, so we've got the strapline for that, and also with the home page as well. So what happens if I don't have a strapline? What happens if a page doesn't have a strapline? I put the horizontal rule in there to show that the strapline will still be included, but the variable won't be used because it doesn't exist. Let me do a demonstration. So with with the about bit, I'm going to remove strapline. So we're going to remove that, save that. So we've got the strapline for the home page. For the about page, we don't have a strapline. However, the horizontal rule is still used because we're still including it, right? So we're still including in base, we're still including it. So what we could do is create an if statement around this to include the strapline if we have a strapline. And the way we would do this is using this liquid formatting. So we do percentage if page dot strap line. So if that is true, then we close that off, and then we do like with the for eaches, we do end if. Whoops, all one word, and save that. Okay, so if we were to refresh this, we don't have a strapline. We don't have that horizontal rule anymore because we don't have the strapline. And then if I was to put it back, so Control Z on that, we do. So that's how we can create logic around the pages based on the variables that we can give, and also a demonstration on creating custom variables in Jekyll. So the use case for Jekyll is becoming more and more apparent to me. I can understand why lots of bloggers, especially technical bloggers, are now using Jekyll to create their websites. And I'm totally blown away by the ease that I can actually develop something in Jekyll. The fact that all the stuff I've got is in these markdown pages, and it's keeping the content away from the layout. All I need to do is define a series of variables up here, and depending on those variables, depending on those values, the templates, the layouts will change. They'll include different bits and pieces. So for example, I could have a variable in here to include or not to include a sidebar or what have you. So we'll get on to all of the sidebars and stuff later on perhaps, but I'm starting to see real benefits of using Jekyll, and I'm going to continue to explore this a little bit further, and perhaps we'll go a little bit deeper down the rabbit hole of Jekyll. Now obviously the blog that I've got, the current blog that I've got, it looks totally different from this, and what I'm concentrating on right now is just getting used to Jekyll, getting used to the layouts, the flows, the logic, and so forth. I'm not necessarily worried too much right now about the way it looks, so I'm just caring about the structure and how I can structure the code in logical sort of ways that it will make my life a lot easier, because at the end of the day, the move from this monolithic WordPress blog to something a little more easier to maintain will be fantastic, because all I want to do at the end of the day, if I can get to this and just work on this markdown and just create a page, fire out a load of markdown, define a bunch of variables, and then everybody's happy, then that's fantastic, right? And there's lots of wins, like I said, with Jekyll about how fast it is, because it's static content at the end of the day. It'll also mean that there's no logging in to anything, which is a big win in my book. Another thing we can also do is change the folder structure of the data. So up here where we've got the menu data, we can actually put that in another folder within the underscore data folder. So if we did a new folder, and let's do menus. Okay, if we created a new file in here and we called this one primary, for instance, .json, save that. And if we took all of that, put that into the primary.json file, saved, and deleted that one. So now it's data, underscore data, menus, and then primary.json. In the primary HTML, we now can change this. So inside data menus, and then it's primary dot pages. Save that. Refresh the page. Hopefully nothing has changed. That's perfectly fine. And just to prove that this has worked, we can just put an exclamation mark after each one. Save that, like so. So this is a good way of creating things that relate to each other. So for example, I've got data menus primary, and I've got includes menus primary. So you can kind of see some consistency going on here, which is fantastic when building websites and applications and such. So I'm going to continue on with my discovery of Jekyll. I'll be creating some more videos and so forth in the hope of moving some more bits and pieces from my existing blog to here. So I'm going to deal with styling later down the line. I'm not too worried about that at the moment. So I'm going to leave it there. If you've enjoyed this series, then do subscribe to follow the next ones. I'm going to do some more on Jekyll as I get to grips with it. Also, do subscribe to pick up the web chats and the tutorials that I do each week. Thanks again for watching. Happy coding. See you again soon. Cheers. Bye.